Hi, everyone. Welcome to Freight Marketing Gurus. Today we've got Danielle Spinelli. Danielle, what do you do over at Descartes?
I'm in sales, technically is my role, but I handle a lot of partnerships and I do like webinars and stuff like that as well. So I'm kind of doing a bunch of different things. But my title is account executive. I'm in sales.
I'm surprised like having a brand presence is not like part of your job title because you are showing up to all the shows and repping for Descartes, My Carrier Portal, and it's like you just have a
Yeah.
strong presence.
Well, thanks. I try. I mean, as far as going to like I basically am begging to always go to all the conferences because I have so much fun, and I love meeting people. So it's like my happy place is traveling. I love to travel, and then I love meeting new people. So conferences is like my jam. And then I
Right?
love my care portal, and I can talk about that all day, every day for hours on end. So it works out.
Well, you've definitely built your presence at these shows, and like I talk to people and they're like, I want to do social media like Danielle Spinelli.
Oh,
Okay, yeah,
that's so sweet.
because I mean you got it pinned. So before we get into that, let's do the icebreaker, and then we're gonna jump into that. So if you
Okay.
could travel time to any era, past or future, where would you go and why?
Okay. Actually, I asked this question by my son, which is weird. He's 10 and I don't know why he came up with this. So, honestly, I wish I was like a grown up in the 90s. Like, I wish I was, because I was a kid. So, I
Right.
wish I was like a grown up and could do all the things in the 90s. I'd want to go see Sublime live. I'd want to go see the Spice Girls. I'd want to like all those sort of things. Like, I wish I could like have been an adult and done all the things. So
That makes a
that would
lot of
be,
sense because like
yeah.
we're probably like the same age. Maybe you're younger. Maybe you're younger.
I'm 35.
Yeah, you're definitely younger. So I remember it's like, oh, I wish I was 18 and I could go to that and like
I know. But I was like in elementary school listening to Nirvana and Sublime and Spice Girls and all that stuff. And I wish I could have, I wish at that time I would have been able to do I would have been an adult and been able to do all those things.
do all the
So,
things you wanted to do. Yeah,
yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
that's my era, I guess. I don't know.
Just love the 90s that much. I mean, I look back at like my middle school and it was like Corn and Blink 182, or not Corn, Blink 182, Corn and Limp Bizkit.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
had the Jinko jeans. I
No
listened,
way.
yes, I did. I had it wasn't like the dog collar. It was kind of like the tattoo collar. So
Oh
the
my
Jinko
gosh.
jeans with like the crop top and the big chunky shoes.
Yep. Yep.
I would have liked to go to those.
I was definitely more like Valley girlish or whatever back then. So I dressed like, so my favorite movie was Clueless. And
I
then
love that
Cher was like
movie.
my idol. I know I do too.
Yeah.
I actually have a white Jeep, two-door Jeep. That's like my Cher Jeep or whatever. Because I love that movie so much. I had to get one when I was an adult. But yeah, that was kind of my style back then. But middle school is awful. Like I got made fun of all the time and it was the worst. So
Wow. Well, that's
yeah.
good. I tried to freak in middle
Yeah.
school, high school,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. But I mean, you definitely evolved since then. So let's go back to building the personal brand. So people want to do social media like Danielle Spinelli. So
That's so
like,
funny.
well, cracks me up because I'm like, I know what they're talking about. You go there and you take like 100 pictures, like you're constantly taking pictures, and then you
Yeah.
do like a end of the day recap and you're tagging everybody. And I don't know if I'm seeing it every end of the day or if you like spread it out, but you definitely like
Yeah.
have
It
multiple days
depends.
going.
Yeah, it depends on how many pictures I take, how long's the conference, on how much I party that night, and then if I can post that night or if I have to do it the next day. Typically, it's like the next day, like in the morning when I wake up, I kind of do all that. But what's really hard is I take all these selfies and then I forget. Like I meet so many new people that I'm like, oh my god, shoot, I can't remember that guy's name. So I'm like hunting down, trying to find
Yeah.
names. So I've gotten better at like taking pictures of their badges or like grabbing a business card. And like right after I take a picture of them, I like take a picture of the card so it's in my camera roll. But no, I'm obsessed with selfies and taking pictures with people. Obviously, that's like my thing. And I think really, even if you don't do that angle of things, I think it's just making sure that you're really like part of conversations and meeting as many people as you can and networking as much as you can. And then taking those experiences, like even if you don't take pictures with somebody else, but you take a picture of wherever you're at and then just talking about your experience. I think a lot of people really
Yeah.
like that and just having your own personal take on things instead of like, this is my corporate company and blah, blah, blah. You know, I think it's
100%.
like be a person. That's really why, you know, I think that's why people resonate, I guess, with me is I'm posting weird things all the time, but.
Well, this conversation actually reminds me of a conversation I had yesterday with Celine Clayton. So we had her on Wilma Live, and we were talking about the company's personal brand and living the brand. You know how they show up in their Hawaiian shirts and their shoes and stuff like that. And she was like, one of the challenges that she talked about was getting people to do social media. It's like people who really care about the industry and are passionate about the industry will naturally want to engage with the industry and do social media and like add color to post and reshare and get the word out and have those conversations. And I think you're a really good example of that.
Well, thanks. I mean, honestly, it started off with basically the fraud part of my care portal. So I was definitely not like this. Meg Boaz, she was with me back whenever MCP before I got acquired. And she basically forced me to do webinars. She's like, you're going to be great. Just get in there and do the things and go to the conference and go talk on this camera, go do this. And I'm like, oh my God. I had no idea what I was doing. I just got pushed into it kind of, but I really loved the fraud part of things. And that's what I did for 8 years. And I'm really passionate about it. I'm mainly passionate about it in like an educational way. I want people to know how to prevent things and how to actually be like a broker and do things, because I've learned so much from my old boss. So I think that's kind of where it started as far as like the passion wise was I'm super passionate about that. I kind of can't imagine working somewhere where I'm not involved in like the fraud part of things. And so I think that's kind of how that took off is, like you said, I became super passionate about it. I wanted to tell everybody about it. And so that's kind of how I started off with the whole, I did get pushed into it, but I then jumped on the bandwagon and posted every 5 seconds.
So are you an introvert or extrovert? And I feel like I already know the answer, but
I'm definitely an extrovert.
like you go out and you do all the things and it either like energizes you and gets you going more or like it takes it all out of you. So for like it's fun. I go to these shows and like end of the day I'm like night.
Oh no, I'm like, it's such like almost like a high for me, I guess, like meeting somebody new. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. And like, yeah, I become like energized bunny if I know I'm meeting people or seeing people. I'm definitely a people person. Yeah.
I mean, I love people, but I feel more comfortable if I like meet them before I meet them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so like we have, Wilma or coffee chats or anything like that where I meet people. And then when we go to the show, well, I met you at Manifest last year, 2 years ago, not this year, but last year.
Yes, you're right. Yes.
And that worked out really well.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, like I guess, I don't know if it's just like with age or something, but like I just will go up to anybody and be like, hey, I'm Danielle. Who are you? I need to know everything about you. And I just kind of got like really fearless, I guess, in that way. And I mean, it's been great because I have so many like connections and networking, and I mean, you do too, but that's kind of my, I guess, approach at things is just like,
I'm just trying to meet
worst comes to worst, they'll never talk. Yeah. Worst comes to worst, they'll never talk to me again and whatever.
Yeah.
So
that's their loss.
Whatever. Yeah.
So you just kind of touched on something. You didn't say it, but you're kind of did. So tell me everything. So you have this like personality where you just walk up to people and you're like, hey, tell me everything. Tell me what's going on. And so this is kind of driven you into direction to start a podcast, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it is called Tell Me Everything.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny? Because I know I just said it. And I kind of catch myself now that I named that, because my mom, I actually was saying that all the time. My mom's like, this is what your podcast should be called. I really enjoy, like I said, talking to people, and really like at conferences, like most people that I meet, I'll end up at the end of the day, like I'll have like a one-on-one conversation with somebody and end up finding their whole life story, and I know everything about them. And I love that talk about things. And I think in like logistics, there's not really anything that I've seen anyways, where it's like you're getting into, like, let's say you're like my care portal, like Jay Pelkey, who is the founder, for instance, like if he like sitting down and talking to him, like, hey, like what drove you to even do this? Like, cause it honestly, like starting a whole tech company or starting a company and starting a brokerage, whatever, that takes a lot of guts. And like, what made you step out of being like an employee to doing like a whole building this whole,
entrepreneurship
whatever
is a thing.
Oh, it's like I'm
like
not even thing. That. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I could ever do that. Like I need that security blanket on me. And so I think just like knowing those stories, and I think that makes a difference, even like buying a product, and not that it's all going to be about buying products and stuff, but even just like knowing, this tech has these features because this guy's so passionate about this or whatever. So I like to tell me everything on really getting into knowing people. And even if it's not, like I said, it's not like a sales pitchy thing. I don't want it to be like that at all. I just want it to be where like people get to know like the why behind why they're doing all these things, instead of just like, hey, this guy's, or like I'm a salesperson. Like, why did I get into sales with logistics, and why am I doing this? And that type of thing.
I can't wait to listen to that. It's going to be really great storytelling. I just love the angle where remember, where were we at? BCS, and you'd like hop in the car with someone and you're like, tell me everything. I'm like,
oh my God.
Are you doing this from the car?
Oh my God. Yeah, that was the Uber driver. My poor Uber drivers. Like, I'm surprised I don't have like a 1-star review, because every time I'm like, hey, where are you from? And have you lived here forever? What do you have a family? And like, they're like, oh my God, lady, shut up. So no, I do that everywhere I go. So it'd be fun to like be able to record it, and hopefully people listen. We'll see. If not, it's just for fun.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm in the same boat. Like, I know some people listen because I get like notification of like downloads. It's not like massive numbers, but if one person finds value in the conversation that I recorded, one, I already won because I got the conversation.
Yeah.
And two, I'm just like, score. I'm happy that somebody else, got something from it. And so
yeah, that's kind of my angle too. And I think what you brought up earlier with the social media stuff, I think you need to go like making every post. Like I don't go in like, hey, I want so many views or so many likes. Like it definitely is not like that. It's just like, this is just something that if I was looking on LinkedIn, I want to post, or like, hey, I had a great day, I want to tell everybody about it. That's how you should take your approach with social media too, because I just think a lot more authentic.
Yeah. So what advice would you give for somebody who's, just getting started out kind of in your shoes, where it's like they're passionate about the industry, they want to be involved, but how can they just take their social media engagement, networking, everything to the next level?
I definitely think the networking part kind of comes first before you can do the social media part. Having people really know you and like you, and like a one-on-one personal experience. So even if you're not going to trade shows, there's always networking events. Like Freight Movement does it all over the US. So there's always networking events in every major city around. So I think just really getting involved in stuff like that, meeting people, and not almost just like stepping outside of your comfort zone and getting to know people. Because once you kind of build that first connection, then you can connect online, and then you can, kind of build your presence that way. That's my advice. That's kind of how I took it.
Yeah. So going back to tell me everything, when are you starting?
I'm hoping next Tuesday, like 1 week from now.
Do you know who your guest is?
I do have my guest lined up. I haven't recorded yet, so that's like making me nervous. So I don't want to say yet. But my one I have next week is just me and Meg like introducing the show. So that'll be like our first little thing, and then after that, it'll be like 2 weeks after that we'll have our official first guest on there. So, but I do officially have it on LinkedIn. So it's LinkedIn. Tell me everything. I'll be posting hopefully today about pushing that out. So by the time this airs too, it should be. Yeah, I got the website.
You gotta flash that real quick and give Megbo as a shout out on that one.
I will. Hold on 1 second. I love it so much.
It's really cute.
Yeah, I was like, I want it to be girly, but not too girly. I'm kind of girly, but I love Cher and Clueless, and I was a Valley girl, whatever. But yeah, I think it's just fun, and I think that's the biggest thing is, I want this to be super fun and funny. I want to laugh. Like the first episode that I just did with Meg, I mean, basically we just laughed the whole time. It's about how we were trying to come up with our slogan. We still haven't came up with it, but we're like having ChatGPT try to help us, and we're like, ChatGPT, make a slogan with this and make sure it includes girls giggling. It's like, what? So but yeah, this is our cute little site. We're gonna have some cool merch, so I'll jump into that. I know whenever
you already got merch, like you got the website, you got merch.
We're ready to go. I know we need to officially do it. But yeah, what's funny is at the McLeod conference. So Meg actually made this shirt. We keep you straight out of fraud, almost like a straight out of Compton play. But we'll have basically the same thing here, and then it will have the tell me everything on there as well. so that's there. And then kind of our quirk was going to be, officially not drinking, but drinking out of a red Solo cup. And yeah,
So
so
you're
that's
gonna have a red Solo cup. That cracks me up. I love
yeah.
I love all the thought on like all the details you put into this. Like you're like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do all of this. Like it's
All of
like, I
this.
mean, you put all the things together, and then what's last? The actual podcast.
My booking my official, I mean, like I have my guests blocked in, but like I don't even have a date scheduled yet, so I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta do that part. But yeah, I I
Oh, we
like
got the
doing
website and the merch.
I know. Well, I love I love being super creative. Like, so this is
Yeah.
an outlet where I can do something creative. I used to paint. I used to sell paintings on Etsy back in the day and stuff like that. So I always like anything I can do creatively. I'm in
Yo,
for.
didn't
So.
you do like a sign for behind you?
Oh yeah, I did. Hold
Neon
on.
sign? Oh, we're
Let me
gonna
see if I
share this
can.
with you.
Hold on. My office is very messy, so this is embarrassing. But see this little guy right here?
Oh
Isn't that
yeah.
cute?
It is
Yeah,
cute.
it's messy, but so ignore
Nothing
my office.
is messy. It's all very chic and clean.
It's no, it is not at all. It's like, don't look. I mean, this side where nobody could ever see is, whoo, you can tell I have ADHD because of my piles of look at my piles of Post-its. It's so funny. I have these everywhere.
You know what you got to get is a remarkable. So, have you seen these things before?
Oh, mm-mm.
So this is a remarkable. It's like a notebook,
Oh,
except it's digital, and I can write on it, and I can flip pages. Because I was like you, I had 900 little post-its everywhere, and then I would try to
oh
find my
wow.
notes from like that conversation, right? And I'm like, oh, I wrote it on the back of this note and put it in this pile, and like it was such a mess. But this little notebook, it's like a little godsend.
I'll have to order
Like
that.
my
That's cool.
favorite
So it
part.
just shows up on your computer then, or
So you can convert your writing to text and send it to your computer. Yeah.
what? Yeah,
Yeah.
this is cool.
Yeah. It's not cheap, but I bought mine, I don't know, 4 years ago, and I use it every day. It's my most favorite.
It's almost my birthday, so I need a birthday present for myself. That would be my
There
present.
you go. Happy birthday to you.
It's actually my birthday's over a month away, but I celebrate it for a long time. So
When's your birthday?
7-Eleven, like the gas station.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. It's not that far away.
No, it's not.
My son turns 18 July 31st, and I keep saying your birthday's next month. So his is even further than yours. So
Oh wow, 18. That's wild. I know my
yeah, I don't want to talk about that one.
okay, good, we won't. My daughter's turning 17 in
I'm
September,
gonna
and I'm
need
like,
wine for that one.
oh man, that's like, yeah, that's wild. Not ready for them to grow up. My daughter is 16. She turns 17 in September. And so I graduated high school when I was 17 and I actually had her when I was 19. I was like a teen mom or whatever with her. And so I'm like, oh my God, like whenever you turn 17, that was whenever I had my own apartment and I had, I was like living my life
Oh
at
my
17.
gosh. I
I
couldn't
know.
imagine doing that today. It would be like, it's so expensive.
I know. Yeah, I was very lucky. And then also my first job was I was in sales and luckily I'm okay at sales. So I got to make money and I could afford to live on my own. But my parents pretty much were like, you graduated, get out of here. And so I had to kind of figure it out at 17. So
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot.
yeah.
All right. So Tammy, you're gonna start in like a week recording with Ming, and then what is your cadence gonna be?
So basically we will be doing every other week on Tuesdays for Tell Me Everything. I have Fraud Girl Fridays, which I guess I haven't really talked about that part yet. Yeah. So my fraud girl persona that Nate gave me, which is so amazing. Having like every Friday, I'm thinking like a 15-minute, maybe 30-minute combo, just kind of like a, hey, in the industry, this is what I'm hearing. This is how to kind of protect yourself, or hey, this is a tip that I have. Just because I do have so much knowledge in that field, I just want to share that as much as I can. Like I said, I like doing the educational stuff. So Fraud Girl Fridays would be little tiny clips here and there. So kind of having both of things like that.
So you're gonna have Tell Me Everything where you interview people, right? And you're gonna do that like every other week. And then on Fridays, you're gonna do like a session by yourself to like do 15 minutes like fraud tips.
Yeah. And I may sometimes have people on because I may have somebody that like for instance, I had that webinar with the California Highway Patrol. So I may do something where like, I'm live with them and I'm talking to them about it, or I'm hoping to get out to California because they did offer a ride along. So like, how amazing would that be? So
Yep. I'm gonna take
yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, I will be there as soon as I can. So I'm working on that actually like this week to try to get something booked because that would be so fun. But yeah.
That would be really cool. That would be really
Yeah.
cool. So we got to hang out at BCS not too long ago, and they had a really good fraud session. Like, I don't think I realized these different scenarios. Like, where like on a map of where fraud is happening, and it was happening, I want to say Arizona or New Mexico. It was like outside of California.
Yeah.
And so like there was like a hot spot there where you know, gas was so much cheaper once they got out of California, so they were stopping for gas, but then that's where there was a lot of pilferage and stuff like
Right.
that. And I was like, wow. So I mean, that's just one aspect of it. So but now I want to kind of dive into picking your brain on fraud because
Okay.
you've got a lot of knowledge on it. So how can brokers and shippers effectively vet carriers to avoid fraud in transportation? Because I know that's a big thing with like the double brokering and stuff like that. Just
Yeah.
making sure that you've got good partners. How can they protect themselves and vet carriers correctly?
Couple things. I think really the biggest thing is like having a conversation with somebody and like picking up the phone and calling instead of just emailing. I was big on emailing and I think you can still do that, especially if you have a relationship with them. But I kind of think that's step one is jumping, hey, this guy does look like he could do my rate. Let me just call him real quick and verify it, like make sure he's like a real person. I think that's huge. And then of course, like I'm biased to have my carrier portal and shameless plug there, have my carrier portal and like look up the carrier and see how they look as far as your standards. And then on top
Yeah,
of that, like if they do have any type of red flag at all, and it having a red flag doesn't necessarily mean that you are bad. Like it's not like a yes, no, but it's like, hey, I need to investigate this further. I need to talk to them more. I need to basically just vet further. So one of the thing that I really like that my care portal has is a VIN verification. So it's like kind of the best way of like this guy's like you're not in the truck with any of these guys. Like you don't really know what they're doing.
right.
Technically, you're not sitting there with them. I mean, even if it's the right person that picked up the load, you don't know what happens when they go down the street, right?
Yeah.
But as far as insurance and doing your due diligence, if something does happen, the initial part is how you did your due diligence. And so like our VIN verification is really big on that. So that basically how that works is that you send a text to a driver through MCP. The text says like, hey, take a picture of your truck showing your VIN number, has to be a live photo. We grab their location at the same time. So when they send that in, we run the VIN, like who does this belong to? And then like, where is the guy? So it's really important to be like, yes, this guy is an actual driver. He's standing with a truck. He's not just like a dispatcher standing by like an AC machine outside, because that's a big thing. I actually had an old co-worker that worked at Landstar, and they said that's what they did. Anyways, and so having like a real driver next to a truck, and then who does that truck actually belong to? Because of course you need insurance wise, you need to show that part. And then is he really where he says he is? Because if he's saying even like on a non-fraud basis, like is this guy 10 minutes from the shipper like he said he is, or is he actually an hour and a half away? And then my ETA, I get my shippers wrong. So I think really that's the biggest thing. How do you know who you're working with without actually sitting there in the truck with them? So I think having those type of tools available to you, where if they do have red flags, or like you have this weird like, oh, I don't know if I should work with them or not, you have
Yeah.
an additional way to say like, okay, yes, I did everything I could do. Like I can't ride with the guy all the way to California
So
from
how do we
Georgia or
feel
whatever.
about the like automated voice communications and stuff like that we're seeing a lot up?
Yeah. So as far as like a fraud standpoint, I think it's fine for carriers that have already been pre-vetted. Like if you're already working with them, you have a relationship with them. I think those are ones that like, yeah, pass those through. I think the ones that you've never worked with, I think those should be rerouted to somebody. And then as
Yeah.
far as like working with the dispatching the like carrier side I think really the biggest part on that is if you're going to accept that, you need to make sure the platform actually vets their customers. Because I think that's a big thing in the whole industry is some people are just like, oh, this is a quick paycheck I can make off of this guy, even if he seems shady. But
Yeah.
it's knowing who you're working with, like what tech company, and do they do their due diligence in their customers.
Yeah. So you mentioned some red flags. What are the red flags that you should look for?
So one thing is like how other brokers or customers have worked with them, if they've had any reviews or not, or reports or not. That's obviously like kind of the biggest red flag. If they've had any recent FMCSA changes, like mainly indicating like an ownership change, because it may be where this carrier looks amazing on all fronts, but they recently had a phone number change or they moved their address from this state to another state. That's typically indicates like a ownership change, and then you don't know who the new owner is, so you can't really go off of previous data because you don't know how these new guys are going to operate. So that's one thing. Other things would be like checking their, we have something called like a lane insight because we're pulling in some macro point data. So knowing like where these guys usually run at and then comparing that to your lane. Like if, let's say they're normally in like the Southeast, but this is like a Northwest lane and they've never tracked there before. That's definitely like, hey, why are you up there? Like having that conversation, because it could also be somebody posing as that carrier. So they're just like a couple things.
So how would you actually build relationships with carriers? Like what's a good solid path for doing that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing with having a relationship with carriers is kind of knowing that like, hey, even like if a ship, like I had a situation where like I found a carrier, I really loved like what lanes that they run, and so like everything I was looking up on them, like I want to build this relationship with this guy because I had lanes basically like Georgia to Northwest or Northeast, excuse me. And during the winter months, like it's awful trying to find people to go to the Northeast whenever it's snowing. So I found a carrier that I'm like, oh my God, this guy's out of the Northeast. He comes to Georgia all the time. Like I gotta build a relationship with him. And of course, first load they run with me, like so many problems, like the customers taking forever to load, like things that just went out of my hands, So I think just even like having conversations with them, like, hey, totally get it. I'm on your side. Like, oh, I hate this guy. I hate this customer. They're the worst. And so I think just being a person, like have a personal relationship. This is kind of like how this whole industry got started. People were used to meet at truck stops and meet each other, and that's how they had lanes happen. So I think going back to just being a person and even networking with your carriers. But outside of that, I think one thing that I used to do is, even if it's somebody that's not like that, if I see a carrier has ran like 2 or 3 loads for me, I've had no issues with them, I immediately call them and say, hey, what lanes do you run? What type of freight do you like to run? What do you guys like? And then see if we can pair up
You have a conversation with them? You talk?
Yeah, right? No
what
way.
Do you mean?
And even if it is just via email, you can do that too. Like that's still having a conversation. It's just going back and forth and showing that like, hey, I care about building your business and I want you to help me build mine. And I think having a mutual relationship like that, carriers, they want that just as much as you do. They don't want to go on load boards and have those situations where they're stuck in the middle of Florida or whatever during a non-produce season and they have a dollar mile. Like they want that relationship.
Right. 100%. I do the same thing when I'm like hiring someone. I'm like, what do you enjoy doing? What do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? Because then you can understand like where they're going to excel and where there's going to be pain.
Right.
You ask them to do the things that they don't want to do, it's going to cause issues.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And it's just like I keep saying, having that conversation, whether it's email, phone call, picking up the phone, meeting in person. I know that's like a big thing too, especially if you're really wanting to make a solid relationship where like this guy will, because as a broker, I remember like having 4 p.m. on a Friday, somebody falls off or somebody's not getting empty. They're not going to be able to pick up. And I'm like, oh, I want to leave this office so bad. And I have to get this load picked up. And then calling in that one guy that I'm like, oh, I know he may be a little bit higher than the market, but I know like I have a good relationship with him and I know he'll bail me out. So you have to have those guys in your pocket or you're going to have bad customer service.
Yeah, 100%. So, at that BCS thing, when we were talking about the cargo theft, I really thought that people were stealing electronics because they're like high value and small. And then I learned that they were stealing like food and beverage items because it was to get rid of. What other trends are there in like freight fraud that you've seen over the last few years?
So I mean, definitely so I did copper and electrical wire. So that's like a hot commodity. That's easy. It's kind of like untraceable, especially like raw copper or any type of, like steel and stuff like that. So that's big. Definitely food, like avocados are huge. Pistachios are huge. Really any food
are either really bad, like not ripe or bad. Like that doesn't seem like it would be like a hot one. But
I actually had they're now a customer, but prior to them being a customer, he's like, yeah, I had this load stolen. Let me show you this video. And it was literally this like legitimate carrier backing up to a U-Haul truck. And they're manually grabbing pallet or whatever trays of avocados over, and the driver's filming this is like, I don't have a good feeling about this, like I don't think this is right, and sure enough it was
Why was he filming that?
well, and luckily he did, because they found it, but by the time they found him, like all the avocados were gone, and they, you know, they basically go to supermarkets and pay and sell them for like very cheap, and so the supermarkets can make way more profit.
Oh,
yeah.
well, sounds like the supermarkets are doing some shady stuff.
Yeah, I know. Which they may be like, oh,
avocados.
Right, exactly. How are you making such
Don't worry
so much
about
profit
it.
on that? But even like if you go to like Facebook Marketplace and you're like, oh, this guy's selling, you know, this like what looks like brand new Nike shoe. I mean, more than likely that's stolen freight. So I think that's something that just like the average consumer doesn't know.
That's probably because there's like a guy that everybody knows for like school. He's like, oh yeah, all the cleats for all the sports, $25.
Yeah, you're like, where did you what cargo, what trailer did you steal?
Now that you say that, I'm like, oh, maybe the school shouldn't support him.
Which, and it could be legit, but there's a lot of them that you're like, oh wow, because I learned that from the California Highway Patrol guys, because that's actually kind of how they can find big rings, is they'll see like multiple things being sold by the same person, they all look basically brand new, and then they will do like a sting operation where they act like they're a buyer, and then they'll find all the freight. So yeah, that's kind of like
I hope you get to do like a drive-in with them while they do a sting.
Like I want to be the fake buyer and like go in there. Like I want to go undercover. So I can do that, but
I want to go undercover. You should be like an undercover boss, but undercover, like, well, it's not an undercover sting, like the sting itself is just undercover.
I'm willing to risk my life for this fraud. Okay, everybody.
That is so funny. So we talked about like how I thought the products were more electronics, and then you were like, it's like copper and wire and even avocados. Is there anything else that stands out as like a prime? And like, how are people figuring out what are in these trucks?
So other things that first on that part, like really anything of value, like they're basically stealing anything. Sometimes they don't know what's in the truck, like you mentioned, and they're just grabbing whatever. And then they're like, oh, well, this is a bunch of paper rolls. How do I get rid of this? And they'll find somewhere to wholesale it. So they're able to take whatever and steal whatever. So just because your freight is not like a high value load doesn't necessarily mean you're completely safe. Yes, they're definitely targeting high value loads. So like tires, that's another big thing. Tires, a lot of food, alcohol, that's huge. And then, of course, electronics, shoes, high-end clothing, purses, all that type of stuff.
How do they know what's in the truck? How do they know most of the trucks have high-value items? Like you said, they end up with paper rolls, but like, is there a way of identifying that?
So back whenever I was a rep, I sold copper and electrical wire, and they would actually have what we found, like from police, whatever, investigating everything, is they would have like a car that would sit outside of the gate and then wait for the driver to leave, and then they follow them. So typically whenever it's a high value load, we say like, hey, have that driver drive 200 plus miles before stopping, because most of the time they'll kind of give up by that point. But that's what they're looking for, is they know like this facility makes this and I should follow the shipment. Now, sometimes like I had a load that was attempted to be stolen from that same customer, but it was like their recyclable pallets or whatever. And so it was just a pallet load. So whenever they opened up the doors, they're like, oh, this is not what I wanted. And then they left the trailer sitting there on the side of the road. But so, I mean, that does happen, but they're really hunting facilities, and they know their stuff. And sometimes too, I've seen where it's like a legitimate carrier. And then they ran a load for somebody before. They see the commodity when they're there. They look at the BOLs, and then they use their, whatever type of fake MC or whatever to do the bad stuff on, and then hit that facility up later.
Do the bad stuff on.
Do the bad stuff. I don't know how else to say it.
Do the bad stuff on. So how are criminals using technology to perpetrate cargo theft and fraud like more efficiently?
What's going to be really interesting is how they're going to infiltrate AI. I'm like nervous and this sounds stupid, but excited to know what they do, because it's going to be
excited.
Like they're honestly brilliant. It's like, wow, they came up with this. That's
right.
Whoa, if only they were on the opposite side. But excited is not the right word, but I guess whatever it is. Anyway, so I think that's gonna be really interesting, and really how they're a lot of times they're not in the US and they're not actually stealing cargo, like cargo. Cargo theft's obviously huge, but a lot of the money theft and stuff is just simply having like the technology in the background to do the phishing attempts and hack into somebody's email and get the load information to pretend to be that carrier and then get paid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I even had a customer who had a fake shipper so basically a shipper called them, was like, hey, we want you to do our freight, whatever. If you're getting those type of calls, this is definitely going to be too good to be true. Like that never happens. And anyway, so they, were like, oh yeah, they said that they vetted them. To me, I think you would have missed some things, but whatever. And so got these lanes. They posted the lanes. Of course, that bad guy knew that these are the lanes. So they called being like, hey, this rate I can do, and took the load, but it's a fake load. Like there's no shipment, there's no shipper at all. There's no real carrier. And so they're making it where like pretend pickup, pretend BOLs, pretend deliveries, turn it in for the broker, request payment, and then they pay out before they get paid out from the customer. And then all of a sudden the shipper goes, everybody goes missing after however many days and shipments they do this on. But yeah, that's a big, there's so many different angles that they do. It's insane.
So one of the things I heard too was that oftentimes when a truck is traveling across the country and gets to the final destination, that's when they learn that there's been cargo theft, and then they have to be able to track it back to the state that it occurred to file like that investigation, and they don't even know where it happened. So what technologies or processes are most effective in preventing or detecting cargo theft?
So really the biggest thing is tracking. Like you need to be able to track your truck. You need to be able to track and have like a tracking device within the trailer or within the pallets really. So there's if you own your own trailer or have your own containers, there's one called Bloodhound. That's really amazing. They go into like the actual, they're like built into the trailers is how they go in. So it's not somebody that can just rip something off. And so they actually have like CO2 detection. So like if someone's trying to steal your trailer and then try to human traffic or whatever, they have detection for that. So they're really cool. That's a great technology, but that's more if like you own the trailer. Now, if you're a broker or a shipper or something, obviously you don't own those trailers. And so as far as even like what's difficult for brokers is like, they cannot tell the shipper like, hey, invest in putting these tracking devices within these pallets. Sometimes they'll have on board. Sometimes they, like, I know my old company, we actually bought them and sent them to the shipper and would, request for them to send it back to us and stuff. But having like a device, kind of the best thing that I've seen is having two devices go into the trailer. One deep inside the trailer, hidden inside a pallet, totally not visible until you completely unload a pallet. The first one kind of being right on that door when they open up the door, because the new tracking sensors, they have it where once they detect light, it will sound off basically and put an alert like this is their location. So you want that initial, usually what they do though is they see that, they toss it, and then they keep going on their day, not thinking that there's an additional one. And now they have scanners and stuff for that too, which is it's wild what all they have
for these tracking devices.
It's insane. I guess it's almost like if you have like the mics and stuff queued up in your home. Like I think it's something like that where you can scan. But anyways, hopefully you don't have that happen. But you want that first initial, yes, my door got open, something's going on, and then reporting that, and then having the police really giving them that tracking info. California Highway Patrol, they're like, that is how we find freight. If you want the fastest way to find it, this is the best way.
Having the tracking device. Yeah,
and having more than one. There needs to be two within the trailer. And then tracking the driver too is big. It's like you need to know that part too. Like if you're tracking the freight and then the driver's all of a sudden going somewhere different, that's like a huge red flag, obviously. So.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. So how can different players in the supply chain collaborate to reduce fraud and cargo theft risk?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like conferences like Broker Carrier Summit, TIA, all those, whatever conference really, or a networking event, and then having those discussions with people and really networking and having like a community feel. I think for a really long time, brokers have been really scared about giving their trade secrets, but everybody's been affected by it. And a long time, nobody wanted to even admit that this happened to them. They're like, oh, this is so embarrassing. My freight's the best. I'm the best broker there ever was. But because this has happened to so many people, everybody's kind of on board of finally sharing information.
Right.
And so I think everything that you can learn, you need to share. I mean, that's one thing that I love about what I do is, because I guess have a presence on social media, people do reach out to me and like, hey, I had this happen to me. I don't say that this was me ever, but you can use my story because I think people should know about it. And so I'm able to take those stories and share it like on platforms like this, or just taking what happened and really dissecting it and seeing like how we can improve my care portal to, prevent that. Cause they're coming up with new stuff daily. So it's like, we got to be on, I don't know about daily, but they're coming up with new stuff nonstop. And so we got to,
well, I mean, they've got detectors for the tracking devices. AI is going to really throw a wrench into things to see what's going to happen with that. Not just voice, but imagery, where it's like, oh, that looks and sounds like Bob.
Right. Exactly. I mean, they could do that. Like, I don't know if you're watching the P. Diddy trials, but off subject.
Can you watch those?
Well, it's like people reporting it or whatever.
Like
but
on
I
TikTok?
would down, or like I actually watched on like ABC News or something. But so the ones that I got down this huge rabbit hole on TikTok, and because they're like, oh, Cat Williams was there, Will Smith was there, Brad Pitt was there. It's like
that's
all
where
these
I'm
people.
at. I'm like, were they really?
Yeah, and so then I looked up on like ABC, not ABC News, CBS News or whatever, and they're like saying like, no, those people were not on. This is all fake news. And I'm like, even say like have pictures and like all that's AI, and you're like, gosh dang it, I don't even know what's real. So if they're doing that with that, you're able to do that with everything else. So
I'm actually really happy to hear that you feel that way, because I feel that way. Where I'm like, oh, I want to follow the P. Diddy trials, and like I'm watching on TikTok. I'm like, is this real? Were these people really there? Did they really say these things? And they always start with like, this is for education and informative purposes or whatever, whatever. I'm like, okay, is that like a like, hey, we can't be held responsible for what we're saying, even though it's true, or hey, we can't be held responsible because we're not telling you the truth.
Right, we're totally lying.
We're totally lying. I don't know what to believe anymore.
I know. And the one that they did about Cassie, the ex-girlfriend, that was accurate. So then I'm like, okay, well, I know that's true. Like I've seen that. So then I was believing everything. I mean, I'm telling you, I spent like hours doing this. And then I'm like, this is all fake. All this information is fake.
Well, I think it's good to like, go to a trusted resource, because like you can't believe everything you hear on TikTok, and it's kind of it's kind of the same for the transportation logistics industry. You can't believe everything you hear and see.
Right.
You have to do your due diligence. So, so one more. What are some key mistakes companies make when trying to prevent fraud or theft?
Biggest mistake that I see is not having a great process in place. So like your team doesn't have like direct instructions on what they should do if something happens. Like you need to almost have like every scenario written out to where like if this happens, if you're wanting to vet them or like this, you guys are going to take a gamble, you need to know like the next step of kind of how to do your, crossing T's, dotting I's. You need to know how to do your due diligence. So not having a system in place, or if you do have a system in place, then having it where you're just totally deviating from it and you're totally taking a gamble on whatever. That's really where fraud and theft comes in the biggest. And so I think depending on your customer, depending on your commodity, obviously there's different type of processes that you should have. I'm actually having a webinar on this tomorrow. But that's really the key thing, is like you need to know what to do if something happens, and then even being prepared for if something does happen, I need to know what to do immediately, because the faster you can report it, the faster you can possibly recover it. Because unfortunately it's not like a win. If this happens to me, it's more like a win, because like I said, nobody has a silver bullet, not any one of our platforms out there. Do I think my care portal is like has tools to really prevent it? Yeah. I mean, I have customers that follow their process to a T, use my care portal religiously, and they've never had anything happen prior to. And even myself personally, that was the biggest reason why I came here, is because we went from having like a lodestone once or twice a year to nothing when we switched. So I mean, like are things out there if you're doing things right, but they are coming up with new tactics all the time, and you don't know until you may be the first victim of that new thing that they're doing. So
I don't know how much these solutions are, or like how much like tracking devices cost, but what if you've got a logistics company with a very small budget? What's minimal?
yeah, to me that's hard. So I did a at Broker Care Summit. I actually did one like building your tech stack, and I did one where you're a brand new broker. Like, what do you need, especially with not having a lot of money? To me, the biggest thing is you need to have an onboarding or a vetting platform. They are affordable enough to where like you need to make that investment. Mainly because if you have something that does happen, like, hey, I just landed this customer, I'm running freight with them, and then bam, you have something stolen, like you're losing that customer. You could completely go out of business. So preventing that happening, and even using that as a sales resource. So whenever you are talking to shippers, like, hey, by the way, I do these extra, my process for fraud is this, because it's on every shipper's mind too. So that's, I guess, my thought process on that. I definitely feel like they're affordable enough to where people should be able to afford it. That's
it's like a must.
It's like that's step one. It's like that, a TMS, and then like some sort of payment, factoring or something. Those are like the three things you have to have if you're opening up shop.
Gotcha. So it's time for my favorite question, which is to spill some secret sauce. So this could be like a piece of advice that you received, or a piece of advice that you've like came up with that you tell other people, but something that makes you successful that's not like a well-known thing.
Okay. I did not prepare for this question. Let me think. I think the best advice that I've ever gotten, and I've kind of followed from there, is like everything happens for a reason, which everybody's heard this, I guess. But I think being able to take anything that comes at you, even like a sale or a conversation with somebody and it not going right or whatever, and kind of letting that roll off your back, because you're like, look, everything happens for a reason. Because this happened, something better could be coming along later, or this wasn't meant to be, or whatever. So really, I lived my whole life with that philosophy, and like, kind of taking that at each step and not letting stuff like really cling to you. I think it's like, hey, let's move on to the next thing. That's my biggest advice in every area of my life. So
well, thank you so much for coming on. Could you please share some contact information if somebody wanted to get in touch with you to find out more about your upcoming podcast, Tell Me Everything, find out where Fraud Girl is, what shows Fraud Girl is going to be attending, or catch one of your upcoming webinars? How can they connect with you?
Best way is on LinkedIn. So Danielle Spinelli on LinkedIn. I post pretty much everything I do on there, as you said. Yep. And then there'll be on LinkedIn, Tell Me Everything for my podcast. Upcoming shows. Luckily, I have a break for a while, but it's starting back in, should be like September that I go back. So I'm going to the Thai conference, McLeod, Technovations, Broker Care Summit. I'm actually speaking there too. And then maybe the Women in Logistics, I think, is the other one. I don't know. I think I have like 6 more I gotta go to this year. Not got to. I get to.
Ooh, yeah, you get to. Yeah, you get to. Well, this has been a really great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been really fun. You're always so much fun to talk to. So we could talk for hours, as you know.
Next, we need to just start something. Maybe we'll do like a midnight Tell Me Everything. Not actually midnight, because I'm in bed, but like a wine version. A wine version where we just have our solo cups.
Yeah. You won't know what's in there, but you'll notice by then.
Wine. It's definitely wine. Well, thank you so much, Danielle.
Yeah, thanks for having me.